الله الرحمن الرحيم قد أفلح المؤمنون الذين هم في صلاتهم خاشعون والذين هم عن اللغو معرضون. I shall cause thy message to reach the corners of the earth. Voice of Islam.
Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuhu. Welcome to another episode of Voice of Islam. As always, I've encouraged everyone to please like and share the said program so that as much people as possible can be able to benefit from the program. Uh, so today we will be speaking on the last pillar of Islam, and that is fasting. Now, just because it's the last pillar that I'm speaking about today does not mean that it's not a very important pillar. All right, and so as I said before, there are five pillars of Islam, and the pillars of Islam is what we call the ways of how Muslims worship God Almighty, right? And so, at first, you can see that the first pillar of Islam is the kalima, and the kalima is just declaring that you are Muslim, saying La ilaha illallah Muhammadur Rasulullah, which means that there is none worthy of worship except Allah, and the Prophet Muhammad, peace and blessings of Allah be upon him, is his messenger. And so, it shows that you declare that you do not worship anyone except God Almighty, and then also that you believe fully that the Prophet Muhammad, peace and blessings of Allah be upon him, is the messenger of God Almighty. Because you cannot worship or be a part of something if you do not declare it, that declare that you are a part of it. And so the second said pillar is salat. And salat is something which is called prayers. We do the five daily prayers. We also do voluntary prayers. All right. But the five daily prayers is very important because what we try to do is purify ourselves and also request God to forgive us and also to help us in the times of bad and even thank Him for the times of good. So, salat or prayers is also a method of how Muslims worship God Almighty. All right. And then also we have zakat. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh, Sister Khadija. And so we also do zakat. Zakat is not done by every single person, but it is done by those who are, how would I say, very much wealthy, right? And so what these people or the wealthy do is they purify their wealth by giving 2.5% of their annual capital. For example, this money is something that you do not use on a daily basis. It's just accumulating in your bank account, right? So if, let's say that you have $100,000 in the bank for that year and you're not touching it, it's just there, right? And so what zakat does is put 2.5% of that wealth and rotate it amongst those who are in need of it, because God Almighty is the one that bestows wealth upon everyone. This is the belief of all Muslims. And so no Muslim has the right to monopolize or, be greedy with all the blessings that God Almighty has given. And so zakat is a means of purifying your wealth, because it is said in the Holy Quran, you cannot love Allah if you do not spend out of that which you love. And we all know that you only spend money, and a lot of people spend money frivolously. But instead of doing that, Muslims do their best to assist those that are in need, because there are two parts of the Muslim faith: hakukullah, which is the right of God, and hakukul ibad, the rights of the creation of God Almighty, or the rights of humanity. And so you cannot just worship God or say that you worship God and go to the mosque if you do not also serve his creation. You cannot be the Holy Prophet, peace and blessings of Allah be upon him, has said that you cannot be grateful to God if you're not grateful to his creation. You can't in actually it just means that you cannot love a singer without loving their songs. You cannot love a painter without appreciating their paintings, right? And so you cannot truly be a worshiper of God Almighty if you do not also serve his creation. And so that is a part of a means of how we purify our wealth, in which is zakat. And then also pilgrimage. Pilgrimage is just those Muslims who can afford it and also have safe travel to go to Mecca and perform the pilgrimage. I explained it. It's a very detailed explanation in our previous said episode. And those of you who want to go deeper into what the explanation was of the pilgrimage, you can go back onto that the last episode, the previous episode, and you will be able to understand what the pilgrimage is. But it's just a means or a method of how Muslims, once again, they sacrifice their wealth to do an action of God Almighty to purify themselves, right? And so it is a means of remembering the Prophet Ibrahim or Abraham, to remembering the sacrifices of the Prophet Muhammad, peace and blessings of Allah be upon him, remembering the sacrifices of the Prophet's wife, the Abraham's wife, in which she moved from mountain to mountain. And so all of these things, it is a how would I say, a journey of sacrifice and opening the eyes of everyone, because this is a worldwide thing, and many different people across the world, they go for this pilgrimage. And it is, as I said, it's 10 weeks after Eid al-Fitr, right? Which is the end of Ramadan. So 10 weeks after the end of Ramadan, in the month of Zulhijjah, at the 8th day or the 10th day of Zulhijjah, this is when the pilgrimage is done. So from the 8th to about the 13th of Zulhijjah, the month of Zulhijjah, is when the Hajj can be done, the pilgrimage can be done. However, there is the Umrah, in which you can do this. It is a lesser Hajj, and so this can be done throughout the year. But the Hajj can only be done on the 8th of Zulhijjah, from the 8th to the 13th of Zulhijjah. Right? So that is the Hajj. Today, we'll be speaking on fasting. All right? And just like I said before, just because it is the last pillar does not mean that it is not very important. So, and fasting is not just this pillar is not just fasting, but it's fasting during the month of Ramadan. So every year for a month, Muslims fast. So fasting in the month of Ramadan is a must. It's obligatory, right? Every adult Muslim must fast, but those who are sick or traveling are not forced to fast, right, during the month of Ramadan. So if you're sick or you're traveling, you are exempted from fasting in the month of Ramadan. However, if the person is only sick for a amount of days, then they must make up all the days that they missed of fasting at another time during the year, right? Or they were traveling and they couldn't fast, so they must make it up after Ramadan. But if your doctor says that you are sick and you cannot fast at all, then you are also okay to not fast. So, those who are old or too weak to fast are allowed to feed a poor person for every day of fasting that they miss. So instead of, harming yourself more, because it's not that Allah wants you to be harmed. Allah just wants you to be a part of the worship of Him. He allows you to worship Him in another form by you feeding those who are poor, right? And so this is what Allah allows us to do. This is a gift of being able to participate still during the month of Ramadan. So, in addition to the obligatory fasting of Ramadan, we also are allowed to observe voluntary fasting whenever we like. There are, however, six commonly um, observed voluntary days of fasting in the beginning of the lunar year, the lunar month of Shawwal, which is a month after Ramadan. So 10 days after the Eid al-Fitr, for those 10 days you are allowed to also fast, um, and it was practiced by the Holy Prophet, peace and blessings of Allah be upon him. All right. Um, and it is said that if you fasted for the month and also for these 10 days, it's as if though you fasted for the whole year, right? It is said that fasting is a source of many blessings. It is said that fasting keeps you away from evil. So this is why we fast, right? The blessings of fasting is the purpose of us fasting. And so one blessing that comes from fasting, it keeps us away from evil. So by fasting, a Muslim, removes himself from even the essential things that Allah gave us, or we are required to have, like food and water. So when we remove ourselves from these things that God made lawful for us, it becomes easier for a Muslim to keep away from the unlawful acts and evil deeds, which are forbidden by Allah. It's easier for us to keep away from it if we are also already keeping away from things that God made lawful for us. All right. And so, another blessing is that it promotes self discipline and human sympathy. Fasting promotes, that discipline and endurance. you know it also reinforces the bonds of human sympathy, especially for the poor, because you're understanding that, man, there are some people in the world that can't even, they can't even afford to drink water. Some people can't eat every day. So during the month of Ramadan, the Holy Prophet, peace and blessings of Allah be upon him, was very generous in giving charity to the poor, because you completely understand what they're going through. Fasting also promotes spiritual elevation. It promotes or elevates your love for Allah and His servants. According to the Holy Prophet, peace and blessings of Allah be upon him, Allah Himself becomes the reward for a believer who is fasting by forgiving his sins and accepting his prayers. Fasting also brings a healthy change in our body systems, and it promotes better health. You know, um, Also within the fasting of Ramadan, it is called the night of decree, right? Laylatul Qadr. So it is said on this night that Allah becomes very generous to accept prayers and forgives those who can find the Laylatul Qadr, or the night of decree, which may be any one of the last days, or sorry, last nights of Ramadan, right? And then also, there is the method in the month of Ramadan called itikaf. All right, it is when you, for the last 10 days of Ramadan, you stay in the mosque, right? And you stay in the mosque for a minimum of 3 days and 3 nights, right? And you stay in the mosque solely for the sake of worship and remembrance of Allah, and that is what is called itikaf, right? And so these are the methods and the ways in which we as Muslims, we remember God Almighty, especially in the month of Ramadan. This is what we do. We do our best to remember God Almighty, and we try our best to gain a closeness with God Almighty, right? And these are the five pillars of Islam that I've shared with you. Um, and just so you know, again, um, if there's any questions, you can message us, and we will do our best to answer them. In the next episode, we will be speaking on the code of conduct of a Muslim and the purpose of life according to Islam. All right. Just so you know as well that it is believed that this year Ramadan will be starting on March 22nd, 2023. So God willing, that is when we'll be doing our month of fasting. It will be starting, inshallah, on March 22nd, 2023. So it's right around the corner. Actually, it's today is February 22nd. So basically, we have a month left until our month of Ramadan has come. And so, those of you who are in full health and able to do so, um, I will have you in my prayers. Um, Please have me in your prayers so that we know that we can complete the month of Ramadan, not just by stopping our eating or our drinking of water. That is not the purpose of the month of Ramadan. It's not the physical act of stopping ourselves from eating and drinking water, but it's for us to come out of Ramadan a different person, a better Muslim. All right. And so I pray that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala allows us for this year to be a year that we give up something forever, till the day of our death, that is holding us back from being a better Muslim, inshallah, God willing. And so this should be our motivation, um, for this month of Ramadan. The Khalifa has continuously said to us that there is no point in celebrating the Eid, or Eid al-Fitr, or the end of Ramadan, if you did not have a spiritual awakening. And so it basically means you wasted your month of Ramadan, your month of fasting, if you did not have a spiritual awakening, if you did not have a spiritual elevation. And so we should keep that in mind, and we should do our best to go into the month of Ramadan to pray to God Almighty, to continue to communicate with Him closely, and throughout, after Ramadan, we continuously stay on that path of spiritual elevation and spiritual awakening. So, inshallah ta'ala, may Allah give us the ability to be able to successfully change ourselves for the better in this month of Ramadan and this month of fasting. So, with that being said, inshallah, I'll be seeing you tomorrow. Thank you so much for your time. Jazakumullah, Asnul Jaza. May Allah reward you bountifully. This has been another episode of Voice of Islam. You can locate us at a mile and a half George Price Highway in Belize City at Masjid Noor. You can also call the president of Belize, the local president of Belize, Arslan Waraich Sahib, at 615-2651. You can contact me in Belmopan at number 6 Citron Street. And my number is 614-8822. So please, if you ever have any questions, if you ever want to learn more about Islam, please do visit us, or please give us a call or a message on WhatsApp or Facebook. We are always available to anyone that is ready to learn, or interested in the Islamic faith. And so, with that being said, I want to thank you so much once again for joining us. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.
بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم قد أفلح المؤمنون الذين هم في صلاتهم خاشعون والذين هم عن اللغو معرضون